Good morning, everyone. My name is Tasha Merritt, and I am the Director of HR Services in the HR Compliance Department here at Filice Insurance. We'd like to thank you all for taking the time to join us this morning for our second presentation of a three-part Filice HR Compliance webinar series discussing technology and your benefits plan. Today's webinar is going to be discussing key points in online system implementation. Our presentation today is going to be conducted by Filice, who is a Senior Benefit Systems Analyst here at Filice. Filice has been with our firm for just over a year now and has assisted our employer groups with a variety of tasks as they relate to system implementations, and has also served as a liaison for the implementations of multiple online enrollment vendors. Today's presentation is going to discuss a typical system implementation timeline, how to prep for either moving your company to a system for the first time or moving from one system to another, conducting a system audit, training of your administrative staff that are expected to manage the system and of your employees that are going to be expected to use the system, and lastly, considerations to take into account after the implementation stage. Before we get started, I just want to give a few housekeeping items. The duration of today's webinar should be right around 30 minutes. Some of the accessible items that you should see towards the bottom of your screen are a Q&A widget, which is where you'll submit any questions that you may have as the presentation goes on. We plan on addressing all of these submitted questions at the end of the presentation as time permits, but for those questions that we can't get to, we will answer individually via email. You'll also see a slides widget that allows you to basically just toggle the presentation on or off of your screen. There's also a widget that contains a link to our Filice website, so you can go there to download some of our compliance publications, view our recently posted blogs, or register for our events, including next week's webinar presentation. The last widget is a help widget, and that widget contains troubleshooting information, so if you're having difficulties with the platform that we're using to host the webinar today, feel free to go there and you might be able to find some quick tips and remedies for common issues. And with that, I will go ahead and turn the presentation over to Filice to begin.
Good morning, everyone. Again, my name is Filice Klein. What I'll be reviewing today is the implementation processes for when you guys finally decide on a system that you want to implement. Want to kind of give you a guideline as far as the time frame that it takes to implement the system, what you can expect, things to look out for, and so I will be reviewing this today. So first things first, implementation can take anywhere from 2 to 8 weeks. And what that means is it depends upon whatever system that you choose to put in place. Some systems are more complex, and it also depends a lot on making sure that you are on board as well as the implementation is on board with making the milestones in putting everything in place to put the new system in place. During implementation, you will also there's a lot of auditing that you need to do. It's not just auditing of the data that goes in. I want to make sure that you guys understand that you also need to audit the setup of how the system works to make sure that it is working properly. And you will need to schedule time in your timeline to do this. Keep in mind, you don't want to schedule this during a peak time. You don't want to do it during year end. You don't want to do it during open enrollment or, your busy time. You want to schedule this kind of at a slow time so that you will be able to put enough attention to getting this project put in place properly. Now, another thing that you also want to consider is it's best to always put in a team with this project. So if you have a system that you're going to put in place that they have an implementation team, you need to have an implementation team as well. You would probably want to have someone who is going to be responsible for providing the data to be on that team. You also want payroll on that team as well if you are implementing payroll and an HRIS. You'll also want, if you are implementing a all-in-one inclusive system, say ADP, Ceridian, or any of those, you will want to also have a senior leadership team member on that team as well, because they can make sure that the milestones are not only met on your side, but they can also make sure that the milestones are met on the other side of the other implementation team to make sure everyone stays on task. When implementing a system, things that you want to keep in mind is it will bring to light various things, like you may have job classes where employees are classified incorrectly. You may want to audit that before you feed that data into your new system. So this is also time to do a lot of cleanup work to make sure that people are classified correctly, make sure that they are under the right departments. If you audit by departments, make sure that everyone has the correct job title, that sort of thing. You might want to perform an audit of the data that you are going to put into your new system so you're not backtracking, okay? And if you do have any questions regarding compliance, say you're uncertain about the classifications that your employees fall into or how they're set up, your broker should also be able to assist in this. System implementation is very painful. Like I said, it's a lot of audits, it's a lot of reporting, it's a lot of work, it's a lot of making sure that things are set up correctly. So there will be bumps along the way. It will be a learning experience, but just keep your expectations realistic about it. Understand that in the end, at the light at the end of the tunnel, it will actually be better for you. And once you have the system in place, it will cut your time in HR administration or benefit administration to where it'll streamline all of your processes for you. Okay, if you are moving on to an online system for the first time, things to expect. The implementation team will typically provide you with a template asking you to fill out various fields in that template. So if you have currently all of your information on a spreadsheet, that sort of a thing, you will need to copy and paste that information onto their template. They do have a formatting, how they want these cells to be formatted when you do enter it in on their template, because that is how the database is able to grasp the information. And an implementation team will work with you to make sure that you have it formatted correctly before, they can't load it unless it's done properly. Typical things that they will ask for, depending on what you are implementing. If you're implementing just a basic benefit administration, they're going to ask for the employee profile information, address, date of hire, that sort of thing. They're also going to ask for the hours worked if you have variable employees. And if you have any questions regarding any of the fields on the template, get in touch with your broker, and your broker might be able to assist you with that. Now, if you already are on a system, say you're on ADP and you want to move to Paylocity, you decided to kind of cut that tie. The thing is as I explained before, each system has their own language. So the current system will not transfer data over into the new system, kind of like a feed or anything like that. You will have to download all the data off of your old system so that it can be re-uploaded into your new system. Now, something to keep in mind, if you are a whiz at reporting, now would be the time to get all the reporting, to get all of your employee profile information, get all the employee benefit information, payroll information, get all of that information off of that system if you can. If you need assistance with pulling the information from that system, you're probably going to have to go to the vendor and let them know, hey, can you please run these reports for me? And there could be a charge associated with that. If you currently are on a system that you house all of your employee electronic documents, say the I-9, the W-4, the direct deposit, or you do your new hire orientation where employees approve of a policy change or anything like that, and you need all of that information, I'm going to warn you that you will probably have to go to the vendor that you're with, and you're going to have to ask for that documentation to be provided to you on a disk. What that means is they will probably charge you for that as well, and it's not a low-cost charge typically, okay? But before you go to that vendor, just make sure that you're able to pull any information off of the system that you can yourself. So, while you're pulling all this information off of the system and you're getting ready to load it into your new system, do not cancel your old system until you're ready to flip the switch onto your new system and go live. You want to make this as seamless as possible for the employees, for your payroll, for your HR, and if you tend to flip the switch prior to, then there's going to be a point that you'll have to figure out what to do in the interim time. So before notifying your current vendor, make sure that you get all of the information loaded into your new vendor and make sure that it is ready to go live and it has gone live before you notify your vendor, your old vendor, that you want to cancel the contract. Just to kind of give you a heads up, there will be a time that because you have one system and you have employees logging in and doing their, say, new hire enrollments or qualifying life events, and you have the other system that you're already put in place and you're pretty much keeping it up to date as much as possible, they will have an overlap time where you may have to do dual entry, just to give you a heads up when you do implement from one to another. So keep that in mind and make sure that all of your HR team and payroll team is on board and understand the processes during this implementation. So once you've gotten all the information in, things that you want to do is you want to do that system audit. Do not wait until you go live to start auditing your system. This is something that should be scheduled into your timeline when implementing, okay? You're going to want to run employee reports. You're going to want to make sure that the employee profiles are correct. Profiles, as you know, is, like I said, the basic stuff: address, rate of pay, date of hire, date of birth, that type of stuff. What their job is, their classification, all of that is considered under the employee profile, and you will want to audit to make sure that they are properly put in place in your new system. You're also going to want to make sure that not only are you auditing data, you are auditing the system itself, as I explained on the first slide. You are also going over the rules. So if you have a new hire that's eligible for benefits first of the month following date of hire, you need to make sure that that rule is built properly into the system. If you have PTO and they are eligible for it after 6 months, you need to make sure that that rule is built into the system. So it's not just auditing data, it's also auditing how the system is set up and testing it to make sure that it is working properly. So you really want to make sure that you schedule the time to do this. Another thing also that you have to keep in mind, and something to work with your broker on, is making sure that the system is set up as far as benefit-wise. You want to make sure that the system is set up that it looks at what the carrier contract says. So if the carrier has the contract that the rate is charged according to the plan contract, it needs to be set up in the system in that fashion. But if you say you have a new hire and they start after your plan contract, does it go by the new hire's date of birth for that age rate, or does it go by the plan contract renewal point? So that's kind of stuff that you need to discuss with your broker to make sure that your system is set up so that when someone logs in and elects their benefits, they are seeing the correct contribution level. Okay? You'll want to check with all of your benefit rules to make sure that those are in place. And if you have any questions regarding how your benefit plans are set up, you know, what the rules are, what the contract states, get in touch with your broker and they will be able to assist you. Okay? So, training. This is another huge thing. Training for the staff, what you have to think is you have to have this training done in conjunction with doing all of this auditing, with doing all of this reporting. Training is a must before you go live. The reasoning that you need to have this training in place is you guys need to understand how to enter a new hire. You need to understand how to terminate an employee, how COBRA works regarding this system, how it feeds over. You have to have that training in place prior to the new system. The last thing you need to do is take the training after the system goes live, and then no one is on the same page of how to properly enter a new hire. So once you've had the training, then what you guys need to do is you need to sit down as a team and start setting up procedures. Okay, so HR is going to be in charge of entering new hires. They're going to be in charge of entering rate increases. They're going to be, you know, and making sure that it's spelled out so that everyone is on the same page on what their responsibility is. You will also need to, with different systems, they have a workflow. So you'll need to understand who is going to approve of those workflows. So if you have different locations, things to keep in mind. Do you want your supervisors to be able to approve vacation or sick accruals? Do you want your supervisors to be able to add information to the employee record? This is stuff that you need to discuss as you're implementing this system to make sure that, you know, you give the access to the people that need to have the access. For the training, I recommend that you have one person in charge of a training matrix. And typically, if it's through ADP or any of the bigger companies, they will come up with a training matrix for you and say, okay, these are the courses that you can take online through a webinar, or they do have online classes, which is actually terrific because it's an active class. So they will tell you, okay, these are the classes you need to take in order to learn the system. I recommend that you guys have someone in charge monitoring and making sure that the required staff are taking those classes and courses to make sure that everyone understands what their role is in regarding this system. You also need to make sure if you're a small shop, one house type of a person, you do the office management, and if this is going to be part of your new job, that sort of thing, you want to make sure that you have at least one other person to back you up. Things happen, you know, you could go out unexpectedly on a leave, that sort of a thing. So you want to go through this whole process and make sure that you have one other person going through it with you, so that in the event of your absence, someone can step in and they can also maintain the system as well. As I was saying, they do have workflow processes that in the bigger systems that you have to set up. In the smaller systems, depending upon your company organization, you won't necessarily have to set up, but you got to keep in mind, okay, who's going to approve if a new hire goes in and does their benefits? Who is responsible for approving that and making sure that it gets to the carrier, okay? Who is responsible for putting in a pay increase and making sure that that happens? So there's a lot of things to take into account when you're setting a new system up. So once you have everyone trained, and well, hopefully everyone trained, this is how you need to figure out, how am I going to roll this out to my employees? This is a brand new system. Depending upon your location, if you have different locations, it can be a challenge. Depending upon the size of your company, it can be a challenge. If you are more of a larger group that, you do have supervisors in charge of your employees, I recommend that you get your supervisors involved in this process for training the employees. That way they understand the system, and in the event an employee has a question on how to log in, that sort of thing, they can go to their supervisor and their supervisor can help them out. But if you're a small shop and you really don't have that put in place, make sure you have an HR person that's right there that is able to assist the employees with the training. Maybe you have a company-wide meeting to go over how they will log in and how they will be able to log in and how they will be able to make their changes and that sort of a thing. You can do it in a company-wide meeting, or you can do it one-on-one, department by department. It's totally up to you and what your time frame is. But what is important is when you roll it out to the employees, make sure that the system is working properly, first of all. Second of all, like I said, make sure that you have someone there that can assist them with entering their information or accessing the system. The system can be used for a variety of things. It could be used for, depending on what you want. They can request vacation time. They can request sick time. They can request, their paycheck statements, that sort of a thing. So this is really a communication piece to the employee, and you really want to put it out there as such to your employees so that they're all on board on where the organization stands. Going forward, after you have all your employees trained, or at least people put in place to assist with it if they have questions, you will want to make this a part of your new hire orientation. Okay? Now, open enrollment, your first open enrollment, if you have that, you're going to get your broker involved. There may be a way that the broker will be able to assist. They'll be able to be there to answer any benefit questions, first of all, to work one-on-one with the employee to make sure that they are making the right elections and answer any health questions they may have. We can do that for you. And then another thing also is, depending upon the system, your broker may also be able to assist with showing your employee how to enroll in their new benefit plans. Okay, so after you've implemented the system, things to talk about is when you do open enrollment, you want to put the communication out there, making sure that it is mandatory that everyone log in for the first time to make their elections, and even if they're waiving benefits, it's advisable that they just get in the system and get familiar with it, okay? Something that you also want to consider is you want to think about, okay, so I have this open enrollment in the system open for 2 weeks. And as you all know, employees lag to the very last minute. What happens after that 2-week point that I've closed open enrollment, and an employee comes to me and says, oh, I forgot to log in and get my benefits enrolled? What kind of stance are you going to take? And that is something for you to decide. If you have any questions, contact your broker and get their viewpoints on it. You have to also think that, with all of the ACA rules and all of that that is in place, carriers are not as flexible, shall we say, on submitting applications in not a timely manner, okay? So if someone comes to you 30 days after, is it a possibility? Maybe. But, again, something to think about when you do complete open enrollment. How strict are you going to be with that deadline? Okay? Mid-year elections, qualifying life events. and new hires, that sort of thing. How much access should an employee have to self-service? I'm a firm believer that they should have access, to all of their information. They should be able to go into self-service and make their qualifying life event change, because that is them saying, okay, I had a new baby, I need to enter it into the system. It needs to be communicated to the employees that this is their responsibility, kind of like it's their responsibility to notify HR, oh, by the way, I'm having a baby, and, they need to let HR know within 30 days when that baby is born. So, in the event that an employee comes in and says, hey, I'm getting married, I need to talk about, adding my spouse, that sort of thing, get on the computer with them right then and there, if you have the minute, and say, okay, this is how you do it, and walk them through it. And that way they can make the elections. Once they make the elections, you approve it, and it goes on to the carrier. ACA reporting. So a lot of systems will track this information for you. You just need to make sure that the rules are set up and are in place for it to work properly. I highly advise that you get your broker involved when it comes to the ACA implementation. The rules are confusing as it is, so get someone who understands how the ACA works to make sure that that is communicated properly to your new vendor, to make sure that they have it set up so that your tracking will take place and accurate, okay?
Okay, thank you, Filice. We hope that you all found today's presentation helpful. Before we get to any outstanding questions, just a reminder that we have upcoming vendor demonstrations available from multiple online system vendors. The demonstrations are going to take place on the week of Tuesday, May 3rd, and will be conducted by ADP, eCentral, Paycom, Paylocity, and PlanSource. This is the perfect opportunity for any employer that's entertaining the idea of maybe implementing an online platform or switching from one to another to get a better idea of what capabilities each system brings to the table. Details about each of these demonstrations and a registration link are going to be provided to all of today's webinar attendees via email. Also, our third and final webinar in this series is going to be conducted next Wednesday, April 27th at 10 a.m. This webinar is going to discuss compliance management through an online system. If you'd like to register for this webinar, just visit our Filice.com website and you can click on the events link to do so. At Filice, offering our employer groups with support with implementing and maneuvering within an online platform is a very critical part of our service offering nowadays. Our staff is fully equipped to help facilitate a smooth transition from paper enrollments to an online vendor, or to help handle a company's transition from one vendor to another. I'm also proud to announce that Filice Insurance was voted the #1 best place to work by the Silicon Valley Business Journal last night. We're really excited about that, and we'll have more information about our ranking available on our Filice website. Now we'll go ahead and have Filice address some of the questions presented by today's attendees. Let's go ahead and find some. We have a couple minutes left.
Okay, so a couple questions that have come in is, does payroll need to be a part of the system to complete ACA reporting? No, it does not. You just need to have a system that does track the ACA reporting. I know that typically this past year, a lot of payroll companies were offering ACA reporting. So it is not something that is mandatory. Your broker also has solutions for ACA reporting. It doesn't necessarily have to be on an online system. We also have a solution that you can use, a spreadsheet as well. Another question is, does implementation need to occur all at once, or can there be multiple phases over a period of time? Something to think about. Yes, you can do it over a period of time. I recommend that if you are doing HR and payroll, that you do those two together. They do have separate modules, shall we say, so you can implement benefits at a different time than, say, your HR. You can implement, they do have like performance reviews on setting that up and tracking it. So yeah, there is a lot that you can do over a period of time. You just want to put in place the things that are most important to you to make sure that it's seamless. And so that's why I recommend that you get, if you are purchasing the HR and payroll modules, that you do those together, okay? If you have any further questions or any comments or concerns, that sort of a thing, go ahead and let us know. And I believe that we are done for today. It was a pleasure meeting with you all, and again, please forward your questions to us, and we will get back to you as soon as possible.
Thank you for your time.